Hi, this is Max Rodersman from Does It Matter? And today we're joined with Craig Kelly again. He's in Georgia, poll watching, and it's October 27th, 2022. Hi, Craig.
Good morning, Max. How you doing?
Good, thanks. So, what's the latest?
The latest is more of a continuation of, I think, what we've been seeing in the past, which is voting turnout, this advanced voting in Georgia, and I think other states as well, is record numbers.
Well, that's good, right? So that means that on election day, it'll people won't just leave because the line's too long. Hopefully, they'll all
I
get to
can't
vote.
promise that. When you run the numbers, I figure, and these are complete neophyte numbers based on very little data, um, but a well run, and these polling stations are well run, a well run polling station with 10 machines, for example, it can put out at best, maybe 1,200 people a day. That's how many people could go through it if it's running absolutely perfectly and everyone arrives at the right time. It takes about 7 minutes. I timed a couple of people, or three people as they went through. It takes 6, 7 minutes from when you walk in the door to when you walk out the door, if all goes well. And like I said, everything's all going well. But if you start running the numbers, given the number of precincts and the voters in Cobb County, there are going to be, at a minimum, say 3,000 people per precinct that have not voted in early voting. Probably more than that, but call it 3,000. And if 2/3 of those people decide they want to vote on election day, you start having big lines. And there's
Right.
nothing anyone can do about that other than prepare people for big lines.
Do they track that from election to election? Like, do they know what the average wait time was for the last election, or will they
I
know it for
don't
this
know
election?
about that. You hear these stories about hours here and hours there. And even during early voting, there have been stories about hours in one place or another. And there are lots of reasons for that. Sometimes it might be because the machinery is problematic, or suddenly you get a lot of people because school ended or something like that. Um, but they do track turnout. I don't know what the turnout in a midterm election generally is around here. And then there's also not the clarity about whether the turnout is going to be different this year, because somehow the angst this year is different from the angst in past years. But of course, the angst always seems the same. It's always the most important election.
Right. Well, I mean, Georgia seems a little bit ahead of Cambridge. I don't think there's. I don't think I can go vote right now in Cambridge.
I believe you could be able to vote on the 20th or
Right.
the
So I mean,
21st or something like that. Early voting. There are a couple of places. I don't know what their hours are.
all right. So I'll
But
look into
but
that.
for you, you'll just walk down if you vote. You just walk down to the polling booth by your house,
Right.
and it's very unlikely to be a big line.
There never has been.
And I would guess I've been told by people it's very unlikely there will be big lines here. Maybe occasionally you'll balloon out, but unlikely. But my point is, if everyone who could vote showed up, then it's just going to be a long line. There's nothing anyone can do about it. And you hope, certainly Democrats hope everyone shows up to vote.
Right.
But if everyone did show up to vote, you'd be like, holy cow, we can't handle this as quickly as we would like, because there'd just be so many people. And that's why you've got the early voting. You want people to be able to vote early, take some of that strain off of the day of, and also make it super convenient, or at least as convenient as you can, for people to vote. Plus, there's mail in, a lot of mail in votes.
And what's your take? I think there's some news about problems that are already happening across the country.
Well, I don't know about across the country. It's pretty interesting doing the poll watching. I've spent so much time inside where we can't use our phones that I'm falling behind on the news. But polling is a human endeavor, and human endeavors are by nature imperfect. So there are going to be mistakes, and that's different from intentional interference or malfeasance. So when you read about people in Arizona, Marsapona County, in full sort of tactical military gear, these militias, these vigilantes, whatever you want to call them. When you read about them hanging out by drop boxes with automatic weapons and throwing shade at people showing up to drop off the ballots, that's interference. That's not a mistake. That's an intentional action. It's wrong. So you hear about that, and that's one fork that elections go. And then you hear about other forks elections go, which is arguably a good faith mistake. Again, with people involved, you're going to have mistakes. And for example, down here in the Atlanta area, one of the local districts improperly coded a number of people in their ballots. So they voted for, I believe it was a school commissioner that they didn't have jurisdiction to vote for. And there's, I don't know, maybe 100, 150 votes or something that were apparently cast that way. And that's just what's going to happen when you have people involved. You're going to make mistakes. And then what happens with the mistakes that are made is a separate question. And I think the 2000 election is a very good example of those were honest mistakes that people made. They may reflect, in fact, with the butterfly ballots, they do reflect sort of the inequities of infrastructure investment in voting. But those were honest mistakes. And then what people do to manipulate them in their favors, a different thing. You get back a little bit to the Mariposa vigilantes out there. So yeah, this is not a perfect system. Won't be a perfect election. I think the best we can do, as we should, is to hope for good faith efforts by all parties and no suppression, no intimidation. Every legal vote is counted and everyone that can vote does. That's our hope.
All right. Well, thanks for the update, Craig. And hopefully we'll catch up with you again tomorrow.
Okay, Max. Thank you so much.